Imagine an emperor so consumed by desire, so twisted by grief, that he looked at a child and saw not innocence, not humanity, but a shadow of the woman he had lost. This is the story of Nero, the infamous Roman ruler whose name became synonymous with cruelty, excess, and madness. But among the many horrors attributed to him, there lies a tale that chills the soul more than the fires of Rome or the blood of the arenas. A story of how a boy was robbed of his future, reshaped into a grotesque echo of a dead empress, all to satisfy the obsession of a man who could never let go. The year was 62 AD, and Rome trembled under Nero's rule. His wife, Poppaea Sabina, was a woman of breathtaking beauty and ambition, said to have held the emperor in thrall like no other. Yet her life ended suddenly, shrouded in whispers of violence and rage. Some claimed Nero struck her down in a fit of temper. Others whispered that her death was simply one more sacrifice to his insatiable will. Whatever the truth, Nero was left with a void that no conquest, no festival, no fire could fill. He began to search desperately for something or someone that could bring her back. That search led him to a boy named Sporus. By all accounts, Sporus bore an uncanny resemblance to the lost empress. His delicate features, his gentle manner, even his eyes seemed to echo the memory of Poppaea. To any other man, such a resemblance might have stirred a pang of nostalgia, perhaps a fleeting sadness. But to Nero, it was more than memory. It was opportunity. He would not accept death. He would not accept loss. Instead, he would twist reality itself until the dead walked again, even if only in the form of an unwilling substitute. And so, the boy was taken, stripped not only of his freedom, but of his very identity. What followed was an act that has haunted history for nearly 2,000 years. In order to preserve the illusion, to mold Sporus into the reflection Nero demanded, his body was altered in ways too cruel to imagine. When the transformation was complete, the emperor dressed him in the garments of an empress, paraded him before the court, and even called him by the name of Poppaea. Sporus, once a child with a life ahead of him, became the ghost bride of Rome's most feared ruler. The courtiers watched in silence, unable to protest. To defy Nero was to invite death, and so they played their part in the charade. They bowed. They addressed the boy as though he truly were the empress returned from the grave. Yet beneath the polished marble halls, the whispers spread like wildfire. Rome, a city built on blood and power, was watching its emperor descend into a darkness deeper than anyone had feared. And the boy, at the center of it all, he could do nothing but endure, trapped inside a living nightmare. But the true horror had only just begun. For Nero, Sporus was not merely a replacement. He was a possession, a creation, a grotesque masterpiece, carved by cruelty and obsession. The emperor staged a public ceremony, a twisted parody of marriage, in which he himself took Sporus as his bride. The people of Rome, gathered in uneasy silence, watched as their ruler stood before them, hand in hand, with a boy who now lived only to play the part of the dead. The empire's greatest city became the stage for Nero's madness, and all were forced to applaud. Imagine being Sporus, draped in silks, crowned with jewels, addressed as Empress, while knowing you were nothing more than a shadow, a prisoner in the body you no longer controlled. The weight of that identity must have crushed him daily, every word of flattery, another reminder of what had been stolen. This was not love, not devotion. It was desecration, a macabre performance in which the boy's humanity was erased in service to Nero's grief. And yet, even amid the grandeur, a haunting silence remained, because no matter how convincing the act, the dead do not return. It is here, in the depths of the story, that I want to pause for just a moment. If you are still with me, drawn into this tale of obsession and cruelty, consider joining this community by subscribing. Together, we uncover the darkest corners of history, the stories that unsettle, disturb, and remind us of the fragile line between power and madness. And if this story grips your heart, there are many more waiting just beyond the veil. But let us return to Nero, who was not finished. His obsession grew, spreading like a poison into every corner of his rule. He took Sporus with him wherever he went, flaunting him as though to prove that he had conquered even death itself. Some courtiers laughed in secret, others trembled, but none dared oppose him. And Sporus endured, his life not his own, his identity consumed by a ghost. When Nero's reign finally collapsed in chaos, one might have hoped Sporus would find freedom. But history does not always offer redemption. Even after the emperor's death, Sporus was forced into the hands of others who saw him as a tool, a symbol, a plaything of power. His story did not end with deliverance, but with a final act of despair, so tragic that it silences the breath. In that moment, the illusion Nero had built crumbled at last, leaving only the echo of a child's lost innocence behind. And perhaps that is the truest horror of all, not the madness of an emperor, not the cruelty of Rome, but the silence of those who stood by and let it happen, a silence that whispers to us across centuries, asking whether we, too, would have had the courage to speak. Tell me, if you had lived in Nero's Rome, would you have looked away, or would you have dared to defy him? Share your thoughts in the comments below.